Great. I think we should start now. Good afternoon and good evening to everyone, depending where you are joining us from. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Supporting Aligned Action on Sustainability in Production Landscapes. Before I introduce our speakers, I would like to cover a few housekeeping topics. You can go to the next slide. So today's webinar is being recorded. We will be able to share a link with you after the event is complete. We also welcome you to revisit the content yourself and maybe also share it with your colleagues as well. We provide live language interpretation for Bahasa Indonesia and English. So please choose the language from the interpretation button with the globe pictures at the bottom of your screen. Baik Bapak dan Ibu, kami menyediakan interpretasi simultan untuk Bahasa Indonesia dan Inggris. Untuk mendengar penerjemahan Bahasa Indonesia, silahkan klik menu Interpretation, ada gambar bola dunia di bagian bawah layar dan pilih Bahasa Indonesia untuk mendengar interpretasinya. And the last point is we also invite your comments and questions, so please look at the Q&A or chat box on your screen. If you think of a question for the speakers at any point, just type in there, and I will either pose it to our speakers at that time or hold it for the discussion portion at the end of our main session. So today's webinar is being presented by the local practitioner network PRAHU Association from Indonesia and social entrepreneurs for sustainable development in Liberia, or SESDev. And both organizations are our partners to support ProForest Production Landscape Program. So to kickstart the webinar, we would like first to introduce this program. If you can go to the next slide, please. Next slide, please. And this will be shared by Sophie Hickman, ProForest Program Director, who's also leading this work. Sophie, it's all yours.
Thanks very much, Cinta, and I'd just like to say welcome to everyone who's participating, and a great thanks to our presenters today. It's really exciting for us to be able to share this this experience that we've had over the last 3 years. If you move to the next slide, I'll just say a few words about ProForest for people who perhaps don't know us so well. ProForest is a group of both non-profit organizations and companies, and we work together throughout the world in supporting the transition to agricultural commodity production and sourcing that delivers positive social and environmental outcomes for people and for planet. So we're very much a mission-driven organization aiming to support sustainability in production landscapes and through responsible production and sourcing of agricultural commodities. And we work in 3 ways, through supporting companies, working directly with companies to support more responsible practices, supporting collaborative initiatives, both between companies, with government, with civil society, with local organizations, and by providing knowledge and capacity building. And this, if you go on to the next, click one more, we kind of have a process that goes through awareness, commitment, implementation, and achieving these positive outcomes. So going back one slide, a word about the production, no, forward, that one, that's lovely. The Production Landscape Program is one of our longer term programs within ProForest, and it's funded through the UK aid, which is under the Forest Governance Markets and Climate Program for the last 3 years, and will be embarking on a new extension to that at the beginning of April. So we're continuing to work in the same focal countries, which are Indonesia, Ghana, Liberia, Cameroon, as the production companies, and then in demand kind of countries, we're also working with China and at a global level around the sustainable production of commodities, particularly palm oil, cocoa, rubber. There's a real focus for the program, and the program has been looking very much at how we help companies that are sourcing and producing commodities to align their actions on deforestation and sustainability and social and environmental positive outcomes, how we help them to align with national and subnational processes and initiatives, and particularly working at large scale in production landscapes, and sort of how we can bring out or provide the environment where companies and government and local communities can work together. We've also worked a lot in awareness raising and capacity building, and that's what we'll be focusing on today. And there's been an element of engaging with Chinese organizations around responsible sourcing and investment through China. If you move to the next slide. So just a few of the highlights of the last 3 years. We've worked on producing some global guidance on how companies can engage with landscape level initiatives, and producing training materials that support that and that can support some of the work at the national level. But the next two are the ones that we're going to focus on today, and these are around capacity building on land rights, gender inclusion, and multi-stakeholder processes in Liberia, and the establishment of a local practitioners network in Indonesia. And those are the two areas that on this part about building capacity and building awareness that we're very excited to hear more about today. So without any more, I will pass back to Cinta to introduce our two speakers. Thanks very much, Cinta.
Thank you, Sophie. Again, if any of you have further comments or questions about the program, please type in the Q&A or chat box, and then we can share it later. So I am now going to introduce our first speaker, Raffi Marbamas. He is the coordinator of local practitioner network in Riau, Indonesia, called PRAHU Association. He will share the development of the local practitioner network, the support for multi-stakeholders collaboration, and the future roles and activities as well. The presentation will be in Bahasa Indonesia. So, Bang Raffi, terima kasih atas waktunya hari.
Raffi, thank you very much for your time. I have introduced you a bit. Yeah, the screen is yours. Thank you, Cinta. Good evening from Indonesia, and maybe good afternoon for those live in London. My name is Raffi Marbamas. I'm the coordinator of PRAHU Association. Our focus work is in Riau, Indonesia. I will start my presentation. Can you please show my slide? So the local practitioner network, PRAHU Association in Riau. PRAHU actually an acronym for Praktisi Rumah Hijau or Greenhouse Practitioner. Next, please. Next slide. So this is an overview of my presentation. First point is the history of PRAHU Association. And second point, the capacity development of PRAHU. And third is how PRAHU support the collaboration between government and private sectors in a sustainable agenda and a long-term plan of PRAHU. Next slide. So this is the history of PRAHU. So PRAHU history cannot be disassociated from BRG, or the Peat and Mangrove Restoration Agency of Indonesia, because we start as the village facilitator of the Peat and Mangrove Restoration Agency from 2017 to 2020. The village facilitator spread throughout several villages in several districts. And the village target is those who have history of land fire from 2015 to 2017. As a village facilitator, we have to educate the community. We disseminate information on the importance of peat protection, how we can manage peatland without damaging the environment, but also supporting the economy. So that is our work. But of course, the program from BRG is limited 1 year in one village. So after 1 year, we think about what about the future of the Desa Peduli Gambut or the peat care village? We thought that we need to continue this program because 1 year is too short to be able to say that this village is independent. That's why we come up with this discourse. And we also tell this to the head of the working group. The discourse of establishment of the village practitioner or the village facilitator in Rio, we start to plan this in 2019. And in 2020, ProForest Indonesia, while they're giving us trainings for capacity building, they also facilitate the establishment of PRAHU Association. We have a meeting attended by 2/3 of the village facilitator, which is around 30 people involved in the program in the environmental agency in Riau. And we agreed to establish PRAHU Association. We have done several activities to strengthen our organization, and we also develop a plan and visions. What is our role? What is our role in sustainability? And we also start to develop a long-term plan as well as the short-term plan for PRAHU. And we also registered our association to the Ministry of Law and Human Rights. And in grassroots level, we also develop a structure in the neighborhood level. Next slide, please. Yeah, capacity building. Can you show me the previous slide? Yeah, thank you. Capacity building in PRAHU. Of course, as a village facilitator of the peat and mangrove restoration agency, we have knowledge. We have knowledge on environment, on the community empowerment, etc. However, of course, there's a room for improvement, and ProForest, even before PRAHU established and after we exist, they give us trainings for capacity building. They give us training on HCV, HCS, gender, FPIC trainings. During the training, we haven't got this kind of training from the peat restoration agency. And this is a new tool to us, and it opens up new ideas and new perspective, how we see the relation between concession, community, the government, and other stakeholders. They are intertwined and they are forming a cycle. If we talk about gender issue, of course, we have talked about the gender issue, but if I may be honest, personally, the gender training from Perforest made me really understood about what is gender. And then the last training was FPIC training that we got from Perforest. And we got so many new knowledge regarding conflict resolutions, how to understand stakeholders, etc. The ultimate goal is to have a sustainable environmental management. And from the FEIC, we also get knowledge on the importance of mapping the key actors in the village, because we may not be able to change everyone in the village. It's impossible in the short time we can change everyone in the village. However, we can map the important actors or the key actors, and these key actors could be the agents of change in the village. The way I say this to our friends is like, it's like we're trying to find an autopilot. So we find the champion in the village, and if they have the same understanding as us, they will continue the program. So the trainings that we got from ProForest really help us on our work on the ground, and also for the capacity development of the members. Next slide, please. Yeah, so after PRAHU established, we conduct several activities. We publish articles in social media. We also inform individuals, and within the network that we have, that PRAHU is established. And we also communicate with the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries, MMAF. At that time, MMAF needs support regarding the ground check activities to check on the mangrove condition in Krupat, Dumai, Bengkalis, in 2 districts. So PRAHU accompany MMAF and give direction, and together we develop and map the mangrove condition in several locations. From that activities, from that data, from ground check, we are able to generate an article that the mangrove in Riau is threatened. So that is the first activities that we do, and we receive appreciations from many people, and we hope that what we do could be a consideration for the policymaker or the government and other stakeholders. Regarding the long-term plan of PRAHU, we haven't developed the plan in written yet, but we have talks with the Peat Restoration Agency, and we also talks about joint activity with the MMAF. We will support the Peat Restoration Agency activity in developing the peat care village. This is still in discourse, but we are planning we are planning to have activity involving women in the villages to improve the economic in that village through the utilization of their home yard. In Indonesia, many women work as housewives and they do not have any additional income. And we can encourage them to make use of their yard or maybe land adjacent to their home, and they can develop that into sustainable agriculture. Regarding the MMAF, we have talked with them and we are planning to conduct ground checks and survey in several locations. And we hope that the data that we collected will help other stakeholders program. And then a second point is to improve the knowledge and facilitate other village in Riau. PRAHU has only established for 4 or 5 months. But in Bengkalis, we have conducted independent facilitation in Kuala Alam village. We initiate a program there, and PRAHU did not allocate any budget, but the community contribute and chip in to the budget. So we conduct this joint activity for the no-burn land management. And it draw interest from the head of the working group, Miss Emma from the Peat Restoration Agency, and Kualam now included in the Peat Care Village for 2021. And then a third point is to take more role in sustainability process in local level. For example, getting involved in state-funded project government program and supporting practitioner in national level. So we see that there are a lot of programs from the company. The CSR program is not, well, they could have a better target. So we hope that with the knowledge that we have, we can help them to have a better program. One of the leverage of PRAHU is that we have the advantage in actor mapping, because no matter how good the program is, but if you cannot map the actors, it won't be as effective. So I hope that we can help the company's program or the government program in the future. They have the fund, and we can support by educating and initiating the community, and we can map the key actors so the program can be successful. Of course, when we're doing activities in village, this program will support the national program as well. Next slide, please. Oh, and this is my last slide, apparently. So that's all from me. Thank you very much. So thank you, Rafi. Before I move on to the next speaker, I have a question for you, because you have shared your activities and your plan in the future. But for the present time, what is the achievement of PRAHU, not only internally, but also externally, to support the positive collaboration among the stakeholders in implementing the sustainable commitment. Yeah, so PRAHU, you can call us NGO. We are very new organization. However, we have conducted several activities that I think really good, and it draw attentions from other stakeholders. For example, a few days ago, we received invitation from a local association in Bengkalis Island to join in the program Bengkalis Hijau or Green Bengkalis. So they have the vegetation program in Bengkalis. So KC masih have this program. Of course, PRAHU will support them. We can give ideas and motivation to them. And KC masih invite us to receive a feedback. So that perhaps show how we work together with the other local association. For the government, as I mentioned earlier, to ensure the sustainability, well, I think every stakeholders have their limitation. We, PRAHU, can complement that limitations, including from the government, because government also have limitation, maybe time limitations or access. For example, in a satellite village in the peat restoration agency, they cannot move around freely. Or maybe there are adjacent villages that also requires facilitation, but they cannot support that. For example, in Kalimantan, there's PODI that need facilitation. The community need to be educated regarding environmental sustainability issue. So PRAHU can take that role. We hope that PRAHU can initiate the program, and the following year, the government through Peat Restoration Agency or the MMAF or MOEF can continue the program. We want to show that in this place, there's also potential for sustainability program, but they require assistance. Okay, thank you, Rafi. We have several questions regarding PRAHU Association, but we can hold that question for the question and answer session. I will continue to the next speaker. Thank you very much.
We'll now move to our second speaker, Mina Beyan. Mina is the program's director at Social Entrepreneurs for Sustainable Development, or SESDev, in Liberia. And at this opportunity, she will share how SESDev established their involvement and support in forest production landscape program, also to include opportunity, challenges, and lessons learned as well. So without further ado, Mina, it's all yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to some of you, and good evening to our colleagues in Indonesia. My name is Mina Beyan again, and I work with a local organization, a Liberian registered NGO called Social Entrepreneurs for Sustainable Development, and SESDev for short, if you would like that. SESDev was established in 2009, and our goal is to support development models which promote socio-economic and environmental justice, particularly for those marginalized from development processes, including rural communities, women, and youth. And our work is rooted in two key principles, that is FPIC, free, prior, informed consent, and self-determination. Since its inception, SESDev focus has centered around ensuring sustainability practices in community forestry and agro-commodity production. And we also worked at both the national and sub-national level. SESDev is fully engaged with APOI, and APOI is, we are fully engaged with APOI and AFI activities in Liberia, both coordinated by ProForest. We started supporting ProForest on the production landscape program in Liberia since 2019. Next slide, please. The PLP focus in Liberia, the crops that are focused on in Liberia is oil palm, rubber, and timber. And then we are also adding cocoa. And the issues that are being focused on includes deforestation, land tenure or land rights. We also looked at forced and child labor, and then gender exclusion. SESDev has been involved from, like I said, from 2019, and we are looking, basically we have been supporting ProForest with stakeholder identification and engagement, which includes, giving advice on relevant stakeholders and how to engage them. We also provide support in organizing of meetings and workshops, like helping with the attendance list, invitations, checking out for the venues, and then other logistics. We also support capacity building, especially with needs assessment, looking at the characteristics of the participants and providing advice, training program, developing the training program, coming up with logistics and follow-up actions. Next slide, please. Our collaboration with ProForest have provided some outcomes. And one of the key outcomes that we've got is an assessment of initiatives addressing deforestation, child labor, and child and forced labor, land rights and land tenure issues, smallholder inclusion associated with agro-commodity production. We have also had a gender assessment of the policy environment in relation to the cocoa, oil palm, rubber, and timber value chains. We've also developed partnership with UNDP, GGP, Green Growth Partnership, and the Ministry of Agriculture for the development of national guidance for private sector engagement in landscape initiatives using the oil palm strategy as a case study. We have also developed a mutual understanding among key stakeholders, especially government institutions and private sectors, on the benefits of aligning private sector commitments with national and subnational initiatives for maximum impacts. So a lot of meetings, a lot of awareness creation was done, particularly on this aspect. Next slide, please. We have also held or organized 2 face-to-face training courses. One is on multi-stakeholder process, and the other is on the natural resources conflict management in collaboration with the National Bureau of Concessions in Liberia. We have also had 8 online training courses that were delivered to 266 participants from Sierra Leone, from Liberia, from Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, and Nigeria. And SESDev, organized and mobilized participants for the Liberian team. Next slide, please. What went well with the collaboration? Like I earlier mentioned, SESDev is a national NGO, and then it started since 2019. So because of the local knowledge we have in the sector, we're able to support ProForests to identify and engage with the right stakeholders and the initiatives. We also supported ProForests to focus capacity building on people who really need them. A lot when you look at the focus crops that we are dealing with oil palm, we are dealing with rubber, we are dealing with timber, we are dealing with cocoa. So we have a lot of people that have interests. And so, as we are planning, a lot of people come on board, but then we are able to focus, the capacity building on people that really, really actually need the capacity building. We also help or supported ProForests to get value for money on services. And particularly, the cost of services for international organizations and for local organizations are different when it comes to Liberia. If you are an international organization, your cost is higher, but you are a local organization, your cost is lower. But ProForests is not present or based in Liberia. And so with SESDev leading the organization, looking for service providers, we're able to actually get value for money on services that were provided. We also make inputs for the extension phase. And not only ProForests that we provided support to during since 2019, but as a local organization, we have also learned a lot from ProForests, especially when it comes to deforestation issues about agro-commodity production sector. We have also learned lessons around systematic approach of implementing programs, and then on a high level proposal writing. We have been collaborating aside the PLP. We have been collaborating, to look for extra funding, additional funding for the work that we are doing. So we have been writing proposals together, and the high level proposal writing is something that SESDev had actually learned from ProForests, and all because of this collaboration that we have. Next slide, please. In spite of these outcomes that we had some challenges. And one key challenge that we had was demand for capacity building. Selecting the right participants for the capacity building activities. As I mentioned earlier on, we have about 4 commodities that we're working on, and everybody wants capacity to be built. And so sometimes it's a bit challenging, or most times it's a bit challenging, because you have others calling to be able to be included in such capacity buildings. We also have a challenge of sustaining the interest of companies who do not work in the selected initiative. I mentioned earlier on that we are focusing, we selected oil palm to focus on, using the oil palm strategy as a case study to develop the guidance. And so most of the time it's actually difficult to get other companies, for example, in rubber, in timber, in cocoa, participating in these meetings, because they don't actually have interest in oil palm. So it has been difficult for us, but we were able to encourage them to be able to participate in some of the meetings. And of course, the third challenge is COVID-19 and its restrictions. We're supposed to have trainings, but because of COVID-19, ProForests team couldn't travel from Liberia, from Ghana to Liberia, but we're able to use virtual meetings, the internet, to provide online training for 8 courses, which although it was a challenge, but we're able to do that in 2020. And next slide, please. We also had some lessons that we learned from this collaboration. And one of that is implementing a program such as the PLP in a fast-changing sector in Liberia without PROFOREST presence requires a credible local partner who understands the sector to be able to support. We also learned that stakeholders' perceptions, their needs, their interests may vary with time. And so it is important to take these into consideration when implementing programs such as the PLP and by using adaptive management and innovative approaches in its delivery. We also learned that collaborating to implementing programs with a credible and respected international organization such as PROFOREST raises the local organization profile and respect. A typical example in 2020, early 2020, we had an organization from Europe looking for a partner to work with in Liberia, and somebody recommended. So during interacting with us, they asked, what international organization have you worked with? And we mentioned PROFOREST and other international organizations. They were highly impressed, and we were able to get that consultancy to do the work in Liberia for them. So it raises our profile, it raises our respect in everything. Next slide, please. So we are more exciting. We in SESDev are more exciting for the extension phase that is to come or about to start because of the development of the FP guidance in the light of the Land Rights Act that we have. And so we are looking forward to collaborate in implementing that. Besides that, it is our hope also that in future, all these guidance that are being developed for companies will be translated into guidance for smallholders who are in the same production landscape, because we have the companies and we have the smallholders who are also into deforestation, who also need some of these guidance to help improve the sustainability aspect of the production that they are into. And so it is our hope that in future, we will look into that and help also the smallholders whilst we are helping the companies. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Mina, for the presentation and sharing. We have several questions, but before that, as a reminder, if any of you have any questions that you have not yet submitted, please enter in the Q&A or chat box, and we will get through as many questions as time allows. Mina, the first question is for you. You mentioned earlier one of the challenges is sustaining the interests of companies who do not work on the selected initiative. Could you explain more about this, and why do you think is the reason of these companies are not engaging in the initiative? Thank you.
All right. We developing guidance, right, with an all palm strategy as a case study is difficult. So you will not see a company focusing on cocoa, or a company focusing on rubber, or a company focusing on timber to sit and discuss about oil palm, right? So it is difficult, and private sector see time as money, and therefore they prioritize their time, which meetings to attend and what to do. And so it was difficult for us to get them. But what we did to address their interests, was to cover them in other activities. So such as the training program that we had, the online training, the 8 online training programs that we had, we involved them. We also, like the natural resource conflict management, we involved them. So we involved them in a training program. We also, the gender assessment that we did, we're supposed to create awareness. But then because of COVID-19, we're not able to do that. But then all the awareness that will be developed, the materials that will be developed in consideration of them as well, so that their interest will be aroused. Additionally, we are looking at the FP guidance. The Land Authority came out in the law, the Land Right Act. It talks about every development that occurs on land should have FPIC applied, right? And so if you are a company and you are developing land in Liberia, then you need FPIC. But then the government doesn't have any guidance for that, right? And so if we are able to develop this FPIC guidance, we will have all the companies, you know, to come at a table to have a discussion. And so this is these are some of the processes or the activities that we are doing to sustain the interests of these companies that have lost interest.
Do you think it's also one of the challenges for companies to align their commitments on the ground with government agendas? You mentioned earlier about gender and land rights law and policy as well. Maybe you can share a little bit based on what SESDev has been doing on these two issues or policies.
With the Land Right Act and FPIC, like I mentioned, you know, the company needs these policies, right? So that they'll be able, so policy around gender, policy around deforestation, to be able to have maximum impact, right? And so in Liberia, like I said, there is no laid down procedure or guidance or any framework for the companies to align, you know, its commitments with government agenda. And a typical example is the FPIC, as I earlier on mentioned. So it becomes difficult for them. So having an FPIC guidance, right, will be able to bring everybody on board for them to align whatever agenda they have, whatever commitment with what the country has, right? So, yeah, so that is what I can say around that.
Great, that's very interesting already, Amina. Thank you so much. There's some question for Bang Raffi as well. Bang Raffi, I will be speaking in Bahasa Indonesia now.
Raffi, talking about challenges, Mina share about the challenges she faced in Liberia. And I want to ask you the question, what are the challenges, or what is the biggest challenges that faced by PRAHU to align the sustainability commitment from the government, private sector, the community, or other CSO? Because you said earlier that there's also activities conducted by other stakeholders. So the question is, what are the challenges as PRAHU and as local facilitator in Riau? How you align the agenda from the various stakeholders and actors? Thank you, Raffi. Yeah, thank you, Sinta. Regarding the sustainable management of an environment, well, the challenge is the most important is how we can make the community aware, because no matter program that we made, we have time limitation. We won't be able to facilitate the community forever, right? So how we can educate the community so they can really understand and have a sustainable environmental ideology. So sustainability is not a program. However, it takes process, it takes time. And the challenge is to find the right key actor as well as patient. Education is not only about economy or financial, but it's also, you have to do it with heart. A second challenge is to make the community aware. So after they are aware, however, there's a challenge that they need to provide for their family. They encroach the forest. They do that because they don't know any other work. We cannot just tell them, well, it's violate the law and you can get imprisonment. You cannot do that. Of course, the community will find a loophole to avoid the legal sanction. So it's important to raise the awareness within them and to give them alternative livelihood. So that's what are we trying to do. At first, raising awareness, it's like planting a seed. You may not see it at first, but we believe that with time, it will grow bigger and stronger. Yeah, thank you, Rafi. I agree with you. Seeing the activities that PRAHU have done and facing the challenges with different actors on the ground. But do you, you mentioned earlier about you expect changes from the actors involved. Have you seen these changes? Can you feel that there is change on the ground? For example, how the awareness level of the sustainability issue, especially regarding social issue. I mean, already share what she has in Liberia, and you mentioned about gender and FPIC. How the community takes on this? Do they understand at what level? And also the government, even though they have policy, but it's not a guarantee that they understood about this issue. I want to ask, do you see the changes on the ground? Okay, I will give an example of a village, but I apologize, I cannot mention the name of the village because it's a illegal logging case. So in this particular village, so within this village, there's a hamlet, and most of the men there, they work as illegal loggers. So they cut down timber in the protected forest. And their economic condition is not so good. I cannot approach the men because these men only think that they need to provide for their family, even though they're facing a risk of tiger attack, because this forest is actually the remaining forest of tiger habitat. So I cannot approach this man. So I try a different approach. I approach the women. I try to educate them and involve them in the sustainable economic program. At first, we don't introduce the program yet, but we just conveying the message about the environment, and there's alternative livelihood without having to cut the timber. So after 1 year, I left the village. They continue the program even though I cannot say that they're really independent, but they have harvest and they get additional income, even though it's not much. And I hope that it can influence their husband. And so the husband can say that, oh, I don't need to go to the forest to get income. Okay, Rafi? Okay, thank you, Rafi, for your answer. I think we are losing Rafi. There's another question that I will ask to Mina. Thank you, Rafi. Hello, Sinta, can you hear me? Hello? Yeah, Rafi? Yeah, Mina, can you hear me?
Our participants, and maybe if you can quickly respond to this, we only have 2 minutes left. The question is, to what extent is monitoring of companies' practices by communities integrated into your approach when assessing companies' commitment? If you can respond it very quickly, that will be great, Mina. Thank you.
You're welcome. So communities are being supported by different organizations, even including SESDev, to monitor the operations of the companies, right? So we have tools, mobile applications that we have given to the communities that they can use to do the monitoring. It gives time-stamped, is GPS referenced, and they are using that to do the monitoring. So communities are monitoring the activities of the companies. I don't know if that is okay, or I need to explain further because of the time.
Yes, I think.
Yeah. So communities, like with using the software that I talk about, the mobile application that they use, they are able to monitor deforestation commitments. They are also able to monitor waste management, and we have recorded a number of cases like that with the communities. So they do that, and they also have we have a platform called Civil Society Organization of All Palm Working Group. And this working group supports communities at different landscapes. So these NGOs support these communities to be able to do the monitoring. And with their support, they come on a table to have a discussion. Sometimes they go to the government to let the government know. Sometimes they have meetings only with the companies to let them know about some of these challenges that they have in getting to their commitments.
Great. Thank you, Mina and Bang Rafi. I know we covered lots of questions here, but yes, unfortunately, now we are at the end of our webinar. For the participant, and if you have, again, need a further explanation or further questions to the speakers, or you would like to connect with the speakers or Proforest team, you can either reach out directly using the contact from the webinar information, or you can reach out via our website as well. So thank you everyone who joined us for today's webinar. Mina and Bang Rafi, thank you for sharing your insights and experience. Thank you for your time, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Goodbye, everyone.